Okay, so I'll go back a few verses so we get the context of what we're going to talk about next. Lest there should be among you a man or woman or clan or tribe whose heart is turning away. Okay, so you've gone through all of the other nations. You've seen the abominations that they do. Lest there should be someone among you whose heart's turning away to go and serve the gods of these nations. Lest there should be among you a root bearing gall and wormwood. And we saw that the root brings forth fruit of gall and wormwood, and then this brings forth the false doctrine. And this false doctrine is required for what we see next. And it come to pass when he hears the word of this curse that he should bless himself in his heart, saying, I have peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. Okay, so you don't want to have gall and wormwood among you in case it comes to pass then, because of this false doctrine, that somebody can say, I bless myself in my heart, I'm going to have peace, even though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. This false doctrine's allowed me to do this in order to add drunkenness to thirst. Yehovah would not forgive him, but rather the displeasure of Yehovah and his jealousy shall burn against that man, and every curse that is written in the book shall settle on him, and Yehovah shall blot out his name from under the heavens, and Yehovah shall separate him for evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the Torah. So this root bearing gall and wormwood brings forth fruit. That's why the next verse says this: the generation to come of your children who rise up after you, and the foreigner who comes from a far land, shall say, when they see the plagues of that land and the sicknesses which Yehovah has sent into it. Okay, so it just skips from talking about this guy, this one guy. It says all of the curses of the covenant are going to come upon this guy. Okay, and that includes being scattered. When they see the plagues of that land and the sicknesses which Jehovah has sent into it, all its land is sulfur, salt and burning. It is not sown, it does not bear, nor does any grass grow there. Like the overthrow of Sodom and Amorah, Admah and Nitzaviym, which Yehovah overthrew in his displeasure and his wrath. Okay, so Sodom and Gomorrah, and then these two places, Admah and Nitzaviym, they were outlying cities which were also destroyed at the same time. And all nations shall say, why has Yehovah done so to this land? What does the heat of this great displeasure mean? And it shall be said, because they have forgotten the covenant of Yehovah, Elohim of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim. And they went and served other gods and bowed themselves to them, gods that they did not know and that he had not given to them. Okay, so they came into covenant with Yehovah. He took them to be his wife, and then they went off and they committed adultery with these other gods. Therefore the displeasure of Yehovah burned against this land to bring on it every curse that is written in this book. Yehovah uprooted them from their land in displeasure and in wrath and in great rage, and cast them into another land as it is today. The secret matters belong to Yehovah or Elohim, but what is revealed belongs to us and to our children forever, to do all the words of this Torah. And we can look at them and we can say, Yehovah brought these judgments on the land. Okay, he scattered them into Assyria. Then he took the house of Yehudah and he scattered them into Babylon. Okay, and at the moment we're in the dispersion. We can look at them and we can see the punishment that was brought upon them for their disobedience, because they went after idols. Okay, they went after idols in their heart, as Ezekiel says, which we will look at. And we saw what the idols are that people have in their hearts today. Anything which makes you say, I can't keep that commandment. I won't keep that commandment because of this thing. Okay? So people do the same thing today. Paul says in Romans 2:3-9, or do you think, O man, that you who judge those practicing such wrongs and doing the same, that you shall escape the judgment of Elohim? Okay, so we look at them and we say, wow, they went astray. They went after their idols. And Yehovah cast them out of the land and he had no time for them. He divorced them. Do we think, when we're in that position, we're doing exactly the same thing with the idols in our hearts? Do we think that we're going to escape the judgment of Elohim? Or do you despise the riches of his kindness and tolerance and patience, not knowing that the kindness of Elohim leads you to repentance? Do you lightly esteem the fact that he's given you kindness and tolerance and patience? You still have the idol set up in your heart. You look at the other people doing wrong and you judge all of them. But you do the same things in your heart. But according to your hardness and unrepentant heart, you are treasuring up for yourself wrath in the day of wrath and revelation of righteous judgment of Elohim, who shall render to each one according to his works. Everlasting life to those who by persistence in good work seek for esteem, respect, and incorruptibility. As Yeshua said to those who believed his word when he spoke it, if you continue in my words, you are my disciples. If there comes to something though, and you think, I really don't want to do the commandment because I've got this other thing that I want to do instead. Whatever the justification for doing that thing is, if you make that an idol, then you've not continued in his work, and it's not by persistence in good work that you're seeking for esteem, respect, and to be raised incorruptible. But wrath and displeasure to those who are self-seeking and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness. So when we look at what Yahovah did to that land, we can say, well, what was the cause of his great displeasure? Well, it was because they went astray after other gods. They went astray in their hearts. But we do the same. Verse 9 says, affliction and distress on every human being working what is evil, of the Yehudite first and also of the Greek. Okay, on his people first. Judgment starts at the house of Elohim. They're the people he's going to judge first. And we think, oh no, we can judge those other people. They're doing wickedness. The Israelites in the past, they did wickedness. Oh, but me, I'm good. But I can't do Sukkot. Couldn't do Sukkot. I'm not able to do Sukkot. Verse 1 says, Deuteronomy 30 says, and it has been when all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you've brought them back to your heart, okay, among all the Gentiles where Yehovah your Elohim drives you, and have turned back to Yehovah your Elohim, obeyed his voice according to all that I command you today, with all your heart and all your soul, you and your children, then Yehovah has turned back your captivity and has had compassion on you, and he's turned back and gathered you from all the peoples where Yehovah your Elohim has scattered you. Okay, so this is the purpose that he did it all for. Okay, he warned all of his people. He gave them the blessings and the curses. Now we're in a position where we are bringing them back to our hearts, where we are recognizing the position that we're in, and that it's because he's just and because he's turned his face from us, and we're turning back to his word. And some people are shemaing his word, are obeying, trusting and obeying his word just because he said to do it. In verse 4 it says, if any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under the heavens, from there Yehovah your Elohim does gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yehovah your Elohim has brought you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you have possessed it, and he has done good to you and increased you more than your fathers. So at this time, what he does is he takes us to the land of Israel. Okay, this is the second Exodus. We see these prophetic patterns throughout Scripture. We'll see that there are people who are gathered into the wilderness as another prophetic fulfillment of this. But this that it's talking about, this is when we're taken back to the land that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We see when it is in Matthew 24, 30 to 31. And then the sign of the Son of Adam shall appear in the heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Son of Adam coming on the clouds of heaven with power and much esteem. And he shall send out his angels with the sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other, in the fulfillment of this. And Yeshua takes us then into the land of Israel, in fulfillment of it, of him saying, if you're taken to the farthest parts under the heavens, from there Yehovah your Elohim does gather you, and then he takes you back to the land, okay, from one end of the heavens to the other. This is when they're gathered. This is when they're taken to the land. Verse 6 says, and Yehovah your Elohim has circumcised your heart and the heart of your seed, to love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, so that you might live. So when you are scattered amongst all the nations and you bring this word back to your mind and you repent and you begin to shema the word, okay, then he takes you back to the land of Israel. And then Yehovah has circumcised your heart. The entire play out of history was to bring his people to that point when they had circumcised hearts before him. Jeremiah 6 verse 10, okay, shows us what this idea of hearts being circumcised or uncircumcised means. We read it before. To whom shall I speak and give warning so that they hear? See, their ear is uncircumcised. Okay, their ear does not submit to what they hear. They are unable to listen. See, the word of Yehovah is a reproach to them. They do not delight in it. Acts 7:51 says, you stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears. Okay, so to be circumcised in heart and ears is to not be stiff-necked, to be submitted. You always resist the Ruach HaKodesh as your fathers did, you also do. Leviticus 26, 40 to 42 is interesting. Okay, Deuteronomy 28 had all of the curses in, and this is talking about after the blessings and the curses have come upon you, and you've called it back to mind, both the blessing and the curses in the land where you go to. Leviticus 26 is also the curses of the covenant. They're covered there, and this exact same event described here in Deuteronomy 30 is described in Leviticus 26 as well. It says, but if they confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass in which they trespassed against me, and that they have also walked contrary to me, and that I also have walked contrary to them and have brought them into the land of their enemies. This is them recognizing the blessing and the curses in the land of their enemies where they are. If their uncircumcised heart is then humbled, if they circumcise their hearts, it's Yehovah who circumcises their hearts by bringing all of this upon them, but it's those people who have to circumcise their hearts to submit to these things, and they accept the punishment of their iniquity. They call all those things to mind, the blessing and the curse in the land where they are. Then I shall remember my covenant with Yaakov, and also my covenant with Yitzchak, and also remember my covenant with Abraham, and remember the land, okay, the land of Israel. Exactly what it says in Deuteronomy 30 will happen. From there I will gather you from all the places where I've scattered you when you've submitted, and I'll take you back to the land of Israel, and Yehovah has circumcised your heart. It's the same event which is spoken of here. Romans 2:25 to 29 says, for circumcision indeed profits if you practice the Torah. Okay, so circumcision is profitable for anyone who is practicing the Torah. But if you are a transgressor of the Torah, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. Okay, your circumcision before Yehovah doesn't mean anything unless you keep the Torah. Okay, if you are circumcised but you break the Torah, then before Yehovah you may as well be uncircumcised. So if an uncircumcised one watches over the righteousness of the Torah, shall not his uncircumcision be reckoned as circumcision? This is exactly what the case was with Abraham. When he was called, he was uncircumcised, but his faith was accounted to him as righteousness. However, what he did then, as a seal of the righteousness that he had by faith, Paul says in Romans 4, he became circumcised. So he watched over the righteousnesses of the Torah. Okay, he guarded over them. He did what was right in the eyes of Yehovah. And then he became circumcised because of the faith that he had. So if an uncircumcised one like Abraham watches over the righteousnesses of the Torah, his uncircumcision is reckoned as circumcision. If Abraham had died right there and then, even though he wasn't physically circumcised, he would have been fine with Yehovah because of his belief. And the uncircumcised by nature who perfects the Torah shall judge you, who notwithstanding letter and circumcision are a transgressor of the Torah. Okay, so someone who's uncircumcised like Abraham was, who was keeping what Yehovah said to do, okay, he would judge somebody who had been given all of the Torah, who was circumcised but wasn't keeping the Torah. Okay? For he is not a Yehudite, a Jew who is one outwardly, neither is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh, but a Yehudite is he who is so inwardly, and circumcision is of the heart, in spirit, not of the letter, whose praise is not from men, but from Elohim. Okay, it's who they are. It's the spirit that they walk in. Okay, it's the faith that they walk in. The circumcision is of the heart. The circumcision being outward in the flesh is only relevant if the heart is circumcised as well. Doesn't mean don't get circumcised outwardly in the flesh. It just means that it's your heart which is important. And if you happen to be uncircumcised like Abraham was when he was called, and you happen to die, you're going to be fine. Abraham was the father to show us, was the father of circumcision. Paul describes him as to show us who are yet uncircumcised, yet walk in faith, what we are to do. Isaiah 52 verse 1 tells us something very interesting about the millennium. It says, "Awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion, put on your garments of splendor, O Jerusalem, the set-apart city, for no more do the uncircumcised and unclean come into you." Okay, so this is in the millennial kingdom. Nobody who is uncircumcised will enter into Jerusalem. In Ezekiel 44, 5-9, it says, "And Yehovah said to me, Son of man, set your heart and see with your eyes and with your ears all that I say to you concerning the laws of the house of Yehovah and all its Torot." Okay, Torah is law, Torot, the plural, laws. "And you shall set your heart to the entrance of the house with all the exits of the set-apart place, and shall say to the rebellious to the house of Yisrael, Thus said the Master Yehovah, O house of Yisrael, enough of these abominations, enough of all these abominations of yours, that you brought in sons of a foreigner, uncircumcised in heart and uncircumcised in flesh, to be in my set-apart place to profane it." So it's always been a problem to be uncircumcised in heart. It's not a new thing that now we're circumcised in heart. We don't have to be circumcised in flesh. If you're circumcised in the heart, when Yehovah calls you, you will become circumcised in flesh because you know that it's what pleases him. That you brought near my food, the fat and the blood, and you broke my covenant because of all your abominations, and you did not guard the charge of that which is set apart to me, but you have set others to guard the charge of my set apart place to me. Thus said the Master Yehovah, no son, and this is in the millennial kingdom, Ezekiel 40-48 covers in the millennium, no son of a foreigner, uncircumcised in heart or uncircumcised in flesh, comes into my set-apart place, even any son of a foreigner who is among the children of Israel. Nobody comes into the set-apart place unless they're circumcised in heart and in flesh. So we've got two prophecies there that say, in the millennial kingdom, it's not going to be good for you if you're not circumcised in flesh. Deuteronomy 28:65-67 says, "And among those nations you are to find no rest, nor have a resting place for the sole of your foot, but there Yehovah has given you a trembling heart and failing eyes and sorrow of soul." Again, he's not just come and gone, boom, there you go, trembling heart. He's put you in a position where that's the consequence. And your life has been hanging in suspense before you, and you have feared day and night and not been certain of your life. In the morning you say, "Oh, that it were evening," and at the evening you say, "Oh, that it were morning," because of the fear of your heart with which you fear, and because of the sight which your eyes see. He's going to put you in a position amongst all the Gentiles where life is not certain, where the promise, the shalom that comes from walking in his ways is not there just because you're a Gentile. You've been not walking in his ways. You've been subject to the world. You bring fear into your heart, and the sight of your eyes that you see is the beginning of this circumcision of the heart. It's the beginning of you starting to call all of these things back to mind and beginning to shema him. Verse 7 says, "And Yehovah your Elohim shall put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you." Okay, so it said, look, when you bring all these things back to your mind, then I'm going to bring you back to the land of Israel. Okay, I'll put all these curses on your enemies, and we know that this happens in the end time. We know it because it's prophesied to happen here, but we also know it specifically from the prophecies that we read. Deuteronomy 28, 20-24 says, Yehovah sends on you the curse, the confusion, and the rebuke in all that you set your hand to, until you are destroyed, until you perish quickly because of the evil of your doings by which you have forsaken me. Okay, I want you to think of the great tribulation, okay, the great time of testing which is going to come on all of the earth. Think of the things that we know about that, and then think back to the curses that Charlie went over last week. Yehovah makes the plague cling to you until he has consumed you from the land which you're going to possess. Yehovah smites you with wasting disease, with inflammation, with burning and extreme heat, with the sword, with blight, with mildew. Okay? Wasting disease, plagues, smite you with the sword. Matthew 24 verse 7 says, For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in every place. This is the curses being put on our enemies, but it's also the curses being put upon his people who are scattered amongst all the Gentiles. There will be some of them who will be kept in the wilderness. Okay, those of the Church of Philadelphia who are kept from that hour of trial which is coming on the entire earth. But this is going to serve a dual purpose. It's going to be the curses coming upon his people, and perhaps they'll recognize, wait there, these are the curses of Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28 are the curses that come on people who don't follow the Torah. Maybe we should be following the Torah, and it will bring them to repentance, and they'll bring all of those things to mind among the Gentiles wherein they are scattered. But it's also the curses being put on our enemies as well. Revelation 16, 8-9 says, And the fourth messenger poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was given to him to burn men with fire. And men were burned with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of Elohim, who possessed authority over all these plagues. It's exactly what is written in Deuteronomy 28 is coming to pass on the nations. Deuteronomy 28 verse 23 says, And your heavens which are over your head shall be bronze, and the earth which is under you iron. Okay, this is a reference to rain. You will not have rain coming from the sky. The earth will be hard because of the lack of rain. And we see this happens in Revelation 11 verse 6. It says, These possess authority, the two witnesses, to shut the heaven, so the heavens are like bronze, so that no rain falls. Exactly the same. Okay, there are things that are not specifically there in prophecy, but we know that they'll come to pass because we're told all of these curses are going to come on your enemies. Deuteronomy 28, 56-57 says, The tender and the delicate woman among you, who has not tried to set the sole of her foot on the ground because of her delicateness and tenderness, her eye is evil against the husband of her bosom, and against her son, and against her daughter, and against her seed which comes out from between her feet, and her children whom she bears. She eats them in secret for lack of oil in the siege, and distress with which your enemy distresses you in all your gates. Okay, so we don't actually have something in prophecy where it says specifically they're going to be eating their children. Okay, it's not specifically in prophecy, but what we do have in prophecy, something that, what we do have as a historical fulfillment is something that Charlie went over last week. 2 Kings 6, 24-29 says, And after this, it came to be that Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, mustered all his army and went up and besieged Shomeron. Okay, so the curse says that in the siege, they're going to eat their kids. And there was a great scarcity of food in Shomeron, and see, they besieged it until a donkey's head went at 80 pieces of silver, and 1/4 of a cab of dove droppings for 5 pieces of silver. Okay, I want you to hold on to those things in your head. We've got food being sold at a greatly increased price here. And it came to be, as the king of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, Help my master, O king. And he said, If Yehovah does not help you, where do I find help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress? And the king said to her, What is troubling you? And she answered, This woman said to me, Give me your son and let us eat him today, and tomorrow we eat my son. So we cooked my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, Give your son and let us eat him. But she has hidden her son. Okay, so in this event, we've got people who are under siege, who are buying this food for greatly inflated prices. Then at the beginning of the next chapter, it says, and Elisha said, hear the word of Yehovah. Thus said Yehovah, about this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour for a shekel, and 2 seahs of a barley for a shekel at the gate of Shomeron. And this is very, very reminiscent of something we do see in prophecy. Revelation 5-6 says, and when he opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd living creature say, come and see. And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard the voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a day's wage, 3 quarts of barley for a day's wage. Okay, it's very reminiscent of it, isn't it? Okay, and it's pure speculation, but it makes me wonder, is this the time when those curses come upon our enemies and they're eating their children as well, when food is of a ridiculous price? Deuteronomy 28 verse 26 says, and your carcasses shall be for food for all the birds of the heavens and the birds of the earth. Okay, your carcasses will be for food. This also comes upon our enemies. In Ezekiel 39:17-18, it says, and you, son of man, thus said the Master Yehovah, speak to every sort of bird and to every beast of the field. Okay, what did the curse say? Shall be food for all the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the earth. Okay, assemble yourselves, come, gather from all around to my offering which I am sacrificing for you, a great offering on the mountains of Israel, and you shall eat flesh and drink blood. Eat the flesh of the mighty, drink the blood of the princes of the earth, of rams, of lambs, of goats and bulls, all of them fatlings of Bashan. Okay, so they're eating the flesh. It's the birds and the beasts eating their flesh. Did it say, your carcasses shall be as food for all the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the earth? So it's prophesied, all of this will come upon our enemies, and we can see it right there in prophecy happening. Deuteronomy 28:27 says, Yehovah shall smite you with the boils of Nitzaviym, with tumors, with the scab, and with the itch, from which you are unable to be healed. Revelation 16:2, it says, the first went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and an evil and wicked sore came upon men. Deuteronomy 28:10-14 tells us how it should be, however. It says, all the peoples of the earth shall see that the name of Yehovah is called upon you. Okay, think about this. When they're gathered back to the land of Israel, when all the curses are coming upon all of their enemies, all the peoples of the earth shall see that the name of Yehovah is called upon you, and they shall be afraid of you. And Yehovah shall make you to have plenty of what is good in the fruit of your body, in the fruit of your livestock, in the fruit of your ground, in the land of which Yehovah swore to your fathers to give you. Yehovah opens to you his good treasure, the heavens, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. And you shall lend to many nations, but you do not borrow. And Yehovah shall make you the head and not the tail, and you shall be only on top and not beneath, if you obey the commands of Yehovah. What does it say? When you shema the commands of Yehovah, he's going to gather you back to the land. He's going to make the enemy under a curse. And do not turn aside from any of the words which I am commanding you today, right or left, to go after other gods to serve them. Okay, so again, we'll come back to I can't do the command. Yes, you can. You just don't go to the left, you don't go to the right to go after the idol that's in your heart, to serve the idol in your heart. Make sure that what's in your heart that you're serving is Yehovah. Okay, in the third part, we're going to come back and see what it is for the word to be written on our hearts. And we're also going to have a little bit of a look at the idea of being adulterous towards Yehovah. We'll come back in a little bit.